What did we learn from Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs and everyone else across college football after a fantastic week 2 of games on Saturday? If you were not able to watch all the games and get all the updates, don't worry about it. We're going to talk about it, all right? I'm going to dig into it, and we're going to talk about what we all learned after, again, another solid week 2. Now, the first thing I learned from Saturday's games is that Georgia is going to crush Kentucky. They are going to absolutely throttle them. This Kentucky team let South Carolina, who barely scraped by Old Dominion in week 1, come into their house and bully them up and down the field. I got Brock Vandagriff making me look like a complete moron out there. I always thought he had the potential and the talent to be a pretty decent quarterback in this league. I knew it wasn't going to work out at Georgia. He was just never going to play, had to transfer. Man, he really struggled, and that's saying it politely. They were 3 of 14 on third down at home, 44 passing yards, only 3 yards at carry on offense. They had 11 penalties. That's at home against South Carolina. Georgia's going to crush them into the ground. They are a soft football team right now. The offensive line is not great. They got kittens. They don't got wildcats. They got kittens on the offensive line, and the Dogs are going to hunt, and they're going to embarrass Kentucky. Those are my initial thoughts. Maybe I'll come down from that. That's one thing I learned. I learned Kentucky's in big trouble when the Dogs come to town. I also learned that there are 4 really good teams. Then there's everyone else. And I could be wrong here, but I'm going to just go out and say it. Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, and Tennessee. I think Tennessee might be the 4th best team in the country. I think they're better than Ole Miss. Ole Miss, we still have to figure out if they played 2 cupcakes, 2 tune-up games, crushed them both. There's still a question mark until they do it against someone, but they look good. I think Tennessee's better than Ole Miss. I think they're better than Missouri. I think they're better than Miami. I think they're better than USC. I think they're better than Penn State. I mean, who are we putting at number 4, right? Unless I'm completely missing someone. I think Tennessee has looked really good. That was a really impressive win over NC State. Offense, defense, special teams, they are clicking right now. That is a good football team with a good quarterback and a good coach. They have a favorable schedule. I believe they have Alabama at home. They do have Georgia on the road, but no one's expecting them to win that game. If they beat Oklahoma on the road, which they look like they're a better team than Oklahoma right now, Tennessee's going to have a really good year, and they're going to be in the playoff like I predicted earlier this year. So I think that group is kind of in their own league, those 4. And then you've got the Ole Miss and Missouri's, two really good teams. I think Penn State is still not very good. I was impressed by their win over West Virginia in week 1, but then they kind of messed around with Bowling Green, who I guess has, they brought in some talent from the transfer portal. Still not buying Penn State. Several frauds out there. But let's talk about Alabama quickly. I'm not putting Alabama in the fraud category, but if you watch their game with South Florida, that was a real battle for 3.5 quarters. That was a 1-possession game with like 6-7 minutes to go in the game. That offensive line is not good. And South Florida was living in the backfield. Jalen Milroe running for his life. I was hoping he had one of those Apple Watches on. He was running for miles on Saturday night in Bryant-Denny Stadium. They've got some big trouble on their hands on the offensive line, and he's not the type of quarterback who can win you games like that. They eventually had to say, Jalen, go run the ball, make something happen, and hopefully our toughness and the depth that we have will carry us. But it didn't carry them until late in the 4th quarter. They were dropping the ball all over the place. They weren't playing sound defensively, and I'm not sure South Florida's a good team. In fact, I don't think they are a good team, and they gave Alabama a real fight for 3.5 quarters. I'm not going to just look at Alabama in a different light now, but they're not as good as I thought they were. They're not bad, but that was somewhat of an eye-opening game. And if they can't run the ball on South Florida, they're definitely not running the ball on Georgia. That's another thing that I learned. I learned Alabama might be in a little bit of trouble on that offensive line, no doubt about it. So we learned that Georgia's going to just throttle Kentucky, completely embarrass them. Again, I say that now, and I'll probably say that throughout the week. We learned that there's 4 teams that are really good, then a bunch of good teams, so on and so on. We learned Alabama's in big trouble. We learned Auburn's still a fraud, so that's number 5. We're gonna go past the number 5 mark here. We'll see how many things we learn. We're talking through it. Real quick, collegebronze.com. Before I forget, let's bring this bad boy in here right now. This is where you get the #1 Georgia Bulldog statue on the market. Today, promo code DOGPOST, DAWGPOST. That's where you can get a discount. This is the only place you can get a discount on this best looking Georgia Bulldog statue on the market that you're going to find. Order yours today in the description below in this video. Okay, Auburn's a fraud. Auburn's a fraud. Sound the alarm. They're losing to Cal Berkeley, a bunch of nerds out there studying who knows what, and they came across the country to Auburn and beat them. I think it was 21-14. I don't care that they have a second-year head coach. I don't care that they're supposed to be improving and building and rebuilding, yada, yada, yada. You can't lose to Cal. The Cal fighting Berkeley Bears. Well, what are we doing? You're Auburn. There's no reason ever why Auburn should be losing to Cal Berkeley in football. It should never happen, right? This could be a bad Auburn team. You don't lose to Cal Berkeley at home. I know they got some young talent. I know they don't have a quarterback. That Peyton Thorne stinks. He stinks. I can smell him from here, right? He's on the plane somewhere, not having a great day after his 4-interception performance. I can smell him. That's how bad that guy stinks. Once they get their quarterback in, then they'll start winning some games, I think. But right now, the Auburn Tigers are still on fraud alert, and it's funny. It really is funny, man. They put 70 on some poor school in week 1. You think, okay, Auburn, whatever. And then they just stump their toe. When they pee down their leg, it's a long pee. It's not just a sprinkle down their leg. They continue to pee for minutes, and you're thinking, man, you're still going, man? That's a long pee right down your leg there. That's what Auburn does. When they lose to Cal Berkeley, they should always have more talent. They should always have better coaching. They always have more resources. They care more. They've got the fan. There's no reason why the Auburn Tigers should be losing to Cal Berkeley. Frauds. Complete frauds. So are you, Notre Dame. So are you, Notre Dame. Losing to Northern Illinois like that when everyone had penciled them into the playoff. Everyone. Their schedule was so easy. No one thought they'd lose a game all year. And then they lose to Northern Illinois. They're peeing down their other leg. They're pulling an Auburn. It's so bad. So embarrassing. And you know what? I learned that Kyle Field, I don't want to ever hear about it again. I don't ever want to hear about Kyle Field. I'm sure it's loud, right? Notre Dame went to the great Kyle Field that everyone says is so tough to play in, right? Texas A&M loses a lot of home games. A lot of home games. Notre Dame went over there week 1 and won in Kyle Field because it ain't that tough to play. And then they go to home, they play at home, and they lose to Northern Illinois. So again, another reason why I never want to hear anything about Kyle Field. It might be the most overrated stadium in college football. I don't care how loud it is. It's important that it's a tough environment for teams to play in. And teams go play Kyle Field and win all the time. Even Notre Dame, who can't even beat Northern Illinois. So Auburn's a fraud. Notre Dame's a fraud. Kyle Field has been fraudulent. What else did we learn? We learned that Georgia could win the national championship, but we knew that. Again, I learned that Tennessee's really good. I learned that Georgia Tech stumped themselves in the foot. I learned that Georgia Tech's not as tough as Syracuse and Fran Brown, Georgia's old defensive backs coach, who's the head coach at Syracuse. We learned that Georgia Tech's not as tough as those guys. We learned that Oregon might be a fraud too. They barely squeaked by a good Boise State team. They may have the best running back in the country, but Boise State's a good team. And Oregon, it took them the entire game. They won on a game-winning field goal last night. So not so great performance against Idaho. Barely beat Boise State. We learned that Oregon is not the team we thought they were. But we learned that Ohio State's for real. Texas is for real. I learned, maybe you didn't learn, but I learned that Tennessee, it might be the 4th best team in the country. And I learned that Brock Vandagriff I was wrong. I was wrong about Brock Vandagriff. I didn't want to be. I spent way too much time watching him in high school, believing he could be a pretty good quarterback. Again, he's a big kid who could really run. He's got a big arm. It's not my fault. It's not on me. He did not reach the full potential that I thought he had in himself. He didn't use the talent that I saw that he had to become the player that I thought he could be, if that makes any sense. So of course, I'm not wrong here. Brock Vandagriff is wrong, but I'm not believing in him anymore. I think I'm off the Brock Vandagriff train, and it might get real ugly in Lexington, Kentucky next week. So those are the things that I learned. What did you learn? Let me know in the comment section below in this video. Thanks for watching. Get your Bulldog today, promo code DOGPOST, DAWGPOST when you order. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you over on the website.